couldn't believe someone was paying me money to do it, kind of thing. Standing on top of the Great Wall of China at sunset is pretty special. We got to stay in a Buddhist temple for a week.
Do I fit in here? Do I not fit in? Like, is this a crazy world that I can see myself being in the future?
Got to work on some amazing projects like Peaky and the Irregulars, which at the time was the biggest budgeted Netflix drama to be outside of London.
I always say to people, if you are really driven to get into this industry, you will get into this industry.
Hi Dan, welcome to the Conversation Room. I know we've been speaking about this for some time, haven't we, for quite a few months, so we're really excited that you're here. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, thanks for having me.
Yay. Just first of all, if you can just introduce yourself and tell us about your role.
So my name's Dan Mucklow. I'm the Connected Campus Coordinator at Liverpool Film Office. A role that I've been in since June last year, so June 25, get the year right. So Connected Campus is a pilot scheme that's been run through the Liverpool Film Office and more widely as part of Screen Alliance North, which is Screen Manchester, Screen Yorkshire and North East Screen. So that's Screen Alliance North, and within those 4 regions there's Connected Campus projects running. So we're the last of those to set up ours, and it's been a pilot scheme this year, really about building relationships between the film office, industry and education providers in Liverpool City region like yourself, the universities and City of Liverpool College. So yeah, that's the role in a nutshell. Done that in a number of ways. We had initial meetings with all of the institutions, try and kind of understand the landscape a bit more about what's been offered at each of those institutions. They've all got their own kind of very unique characteristics, I'd say, which has been really interesting to get to know. And off the back of that, just trying to support and kind of echo what's been taught across the courses that are kind of relevant to the film industry, which most people will probably think is all the screen courses, but we're looking to engage with a much wider course basis, so around accountants and business and construction, and obviously all of the screen courses as well, but you know, costume and makeup, and takes a small city to make a film production, so we want to engage with as many people that we think may benefit from the opportunities that are arising in the city around the amazing amount of production that happens in the city. Liverpool's the most filmed in city outside of London, and we've just had our 5-year impact report, which points towards over £160 million worth of inward investment off the 5 years of production that's happened in the city. So some really big numbers, and the reflection of that is roles like Connected Campus being created, and Sophie's role and the skills team broadening and widening, and the film office itself almost doubling in size in that time. So a reflection of the amount of work that's being put through the city.
Yeah.
That's my role with the film office. Previous to that, I was an art director for 22 years and worked on a variety of projects from children's TV to soap here in the city, which is how I ended up in Liverpool working at Hollyoaks. Then I went freelance from there and worked all over the country, mainly across the north. So all those screen regions I mentioned is pretty much where I've spent my...
Your stomping ground.
Exactly, yeah. Spent my freelance career. But got to work on some amazing projects like Peaky and the Irregulars, which at the time was the biggest budgeted Netflix drama to be outside of London. So that was based in Liverpool as well. And yeah, some really interesting projects for the art department, City in the City, based on a science fiction novel. The only period adaptation of War of the Worlds, which was again shot in Liverpool. So from an art department point of view, they're really interesting bits of work to be involved with, especially the period stuff. I loved it. And I spent most of my time as an on-set art director, and then more later on in my career ended up being an art director and designing and building sets around that. So 2 days never the same. So it really satisfied my mind.
You need to be busy and varied.
Yeah, varied projects. I really enjoyed freelancing and interacting and meeting new people every 3 to 6 months, and the challenge of working with new people. It really was something that I really embraced. I really liked that side of the role. I think freelancing can be a challenge for some people, but I I think it just, ticked a lot of boxes for me. Bit nomadic maybe as well, so I always love to travel and experience new cities, and I was fortunate enough to work internationally. 2016, so I spent 9 months in Asia doing a job out there where we kind of used Malaysia as a jump off point to film over Nepal, Thailand, first British drama to ever go to China. So
what was the drama then?
It was called Foreign Bodies. I think they ended up calling it Gap Year, but it was basically we followed two lads backpacking around Asia. So we went backpacking around Asia with them pretty much, but ended up in some real pinch me locations like the Great Wall of China and Kathmandu and Buddhist temples and all these wonderful, bit of a fever dream job really. But the opportunities that being involved in a business like that can give you are quite. I mean, I was just a lad from Birmingham who was on a building site who went to art college and studied set design. So the career paths are there. You just got to eke them out. Yeah,
got to find them. Just looking at career paths, I know some people might not know what an artistic director is. Can you just explain what that involves?
So, art director on set is you're responsible for the look of the show from the art department's point of view. So the production designer will have a vision of what that world looks like. So, for example, Peaky Blinders is late 1920s, the series that I did. But with a bit of a punky twist, isn't it, Peaky Blinders? So you were responsible for maintaining that world, especially when you're shooting on locations and there's maybe some contemporary elements there that need either covering up or dealing with in camera or in post. So your responsibility is to make sure that the look of the show carries its integrity. You're also the last member of the department to see it when it gets put on camera, so all the hard work of the other members of the department needs to be put in front of the camera, basically.
Yeah.
So from the set decks, the props, the construction guys, the buyers, the graphics, you all need to make sure that all that time, effort, and money that's been spent, you get your bang for your bucks on screen, and dress the shots nicely. So a very collaborative role working with camera departments, directors of photography, lighting departments, costume and makeup as well, so you really sat in the middle of it all, which I loved, that collaborative element. It was brilliant. Different day every day.
What was, just coming back to your early career, what was your first ever job?
My first ever job was probably my favourite job because it was my first one, so it was like the wow moment, and it was called Dangerville. And when I finished university, I stayed on in Nottingham for about a year, I think, from memory. It's a while ago now. And I was working doing some house removals for a friend as a bit of a cash in hand job. I did pay my taxes. And one of the other guys who was there working was a location manager, and I just graduated university, like I said, doing set design. And I just got talking to him, and I kind of badgered him a bit and asked him if it was all right to go out for a coffee, and stayed in contact with him. And about six or 8 months later, a job came into Nottingham, and he told me they were looking for an art department assistant or art department trainee, so got me the contact, and I went down to meet the designer and basically got given a broom to join in. And it was amazing. I worked in the construction department, I worked on set, which is where I kind of got a love of standby art directing, but also worked in the art department, helping the buyers and building the scale models of the sets. So I was just like, wow, this is amazing.
It's my dream job.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. I didn't even feel like, I couldn't believe someone was paying me money to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that always stuck. That, like, all right, someone's giving me money to do this. It was great. So I think that's always been my favourite, because it was like the first glimpse behind the curtain. You felt like you were like in the industry rather than on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So quite a pivotal moment, really. Of course, things don't always run smoothly, and I kind of foolishly thought that was it, and I'd cracked the industry kind of thing. So it then took another few months to get the next opportunity, which I thought you'd just be like, all right.
So you thought once you're in, it just
slides it would just happen for you, but you really have to work at it. And I think that's been the common thread throughout all of it, is you're constantly networking for work, trying to find work, always looking, like even when you're on the job, you're looking at, when that comes...
With a knife, the next one.
Yeah, like 6 to 8 weeks before it ends, you start thinking about who do I reach out to, who do I know that's maybe working, who do I want to work with, who, where, how, and you kind of start picking up the phone and making phone calls. And as your network gets bigger and the more jobs you do, that becomes a bit more straightforward because you know more people, but you need to maintain those skills. Even getting a job at the film office, I met Helen, who's the lead in the skills team. I met her at a networking event in Liverpool and maintained that contact and that relationship for a good, I think it was like 18 months or 2 years before an opportunity came up at the film office. And yeah, but it's a skill set you need for life. It's not like, which I underestimated at the start. I always thought that was, once you cracked one job, it'd all be like a domino effect. And
yeah. How did you get that second job? Did you have like a moment where you thought, oh, I really need to do something about this?
Do you know, I think from memory, I started doing other things. So I started looking for roles that would maybe I could use my skill set that maybe weren't in TV as well while I was looking for TV work. So I ended up doing, I think Nike were doing a clothing launch and we were taking it to like 5 different cities around the UK. And while I was doing that, and it was basically just setting it up and striking it. So maybe like a bit of construction work. So less of the design element, but more of the doing, unloading trucks and that kind of thing. So far from glamorous, but it was good fun actually. It was good. But while I was in Manchester, I just looked up a mate of mine from uni, a girl called Holly Morpeth, who ended up doing quite a few jobs with Holly. Actually, I did the Irregulars with her, and she was working at Line Pictures at Hollyoaks. So we just kind of stayed in touch a bit more after that. I was like, I'm in Manchester. I knew she lived there. Like, we should go out for a beer, and like you do, catching up with our uni mates. And she mentioned that she was there, and I was like, if anything comes up, let us know, kind of thing. And she did, to a word. Like a few months later, she phoned and said, they're looking for a standby art director. Just say yes. And I was like, okay. And they phoned and I said yes. And then she helped me kind of lean into that role a bit. It's something I'd never done before. So I had to kind of, don't want to say fake it till you make it, but be very watchful about how things worked and take your opportunity, I suppose. But I think people mistook my quietness on set for experience.
Right, okay.
But I was just watching quite carefully about how the camera moved, and then you just started figuring it out from there. So
yeah. So from that, you'd probably take, if you're not sure how to do something, just take the opportunity anyway, and then learn quickly how to do it.
Yeah, that's the worst that can happen. It was another one of those pivotal moments, I suppose. But I really learned a lot working at Line Pictures, and single camera filming of a soap is so fast. You do such a high page count, but because it's a single camera, it's a really disciplined way of working. So I learnt a lot there and learnt a lot quickly, and then went on to do like the big stunt episodes and various bits and pieces there. But then kind of got to a point where I was like, right, I want the next thing. It was, so I left and got my first freelancing job on a drama, which was The Village, which ironically me and Sophie worked on together.
Yeah.
So a few years ago now. But so yeah, that was kind of the progression through that.
Are there any moments in your career that you're particularly proud of? If you think, that was good, I really enjoyed that, or I did well there?
I loved working on Peaky's because my family's from that part of Birmingham, and it's one of the things I've worked on that I was a fan of. It doesn't necessarily always happen because you go where you work, it's kind of thing. So that was a real pinch me moment, and just I think the standards on that set were immense. Killian was the exec on it, so him being there really drove an excellence from everyone.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. Obviously, I talked about the job in Asia, which was absolutely bonkers. I think we took like 21 flights in that time and just moved around. So that was challenging and invigorating, and a complete overload of senses of culture, and standing on top of the Great Wall of China at sunset's pretty special.
Absolutely, that must mean.
We got to stay in a Buddhist temple for a week, which is probably the best night's sleep I've ever had. But you don't know. I appreciated that job as it was happening. I was like, this is pretty special, which you don't always get. But it's quite interesting when people ask you about those jobs. I always enjoyed the job, if this makes sense. So, like for me, I wanted to work in TV because I loved design, not necessarily because I loved film, if that makes sense. So it was all about the design side of it for me, and it was an amazing vehicle to work in an industry like TV and film around the element of designing and creating and building. So the enjoyment was always in the process, not necessarily watching it back at the end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it.
Although I'd always watch back what I'd watched because I was pretty hard on myself about what we could have done better, and my wife hates watching TV with me because I'll pull it apart. But there's definitely been some great standout moments. I feel really fortunate to have done that. And yet, do you know, some maybe less or not as big perceived jobs which just had the best crews on. Like one of my favourite jobs was an ITV drama called Bancroft, but I think it was second series and she was a detective, and but the crew on it were absolutely phenomenal. We had the best time. So not many people have heard of that show, but it was an amazing job to do.
Yeah.
So the experience was where it was at, not necessarily
in the final product.
In the product, which is quite a crazy thing to say for an art director. But I can't remember which actor I was that was being interviewed. They were being asked about, "Oh, do you watch your own films?" And they were like, "Yeah, sometimes," but it was always about the enjoyment of the making.
Yeah,
so
the craft.
That really kind of stuck with me. I was like, yeah, that's absolutely it. That's what I enjoy, was doing it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
The day-to-day grind of it. So it is a massive challenge to undertake some of those jobs. But
yeah. Just moving on to Liverpool Film Office, because I know people will be really interested in that. Kind of day-to-day, what does the Liverpool Film Office do?
So that's a very good question. Kind of, for me, the way I see it is that it's kind of threefold. So there's obviously the production liaison, so all productions that come into the city. We help facilitate their needs, whether that's finding locations or brokering conversations with specific locations that they're interested in. So Zoe, our production liaison manager, will get a request around filming, and then maybe the director and the location scout and the designer might do a prerequisite, so she'll go out with them and show them the city and walk them through everything it has to offer, of which there's many amazing filming opportunities around the city. So that's kind of the primary driver, I suppose, is getting the productions in, because that's where the spend comes from.
Yeah.
And that's where the inward investment comes from. And then that has a trickle-down effect of enabling the skills team to help upskill mid-level crew, help broker opportunities for new entrants and people looking to get into the industry, whether that's through Action, the Youth Guarantee, or Connected Campus, and really like opening people's eyes to the amount of opportunities there are around a growing industry. And it should be young people and people from the city that are walking into those opportunities.
Yeah.
And when the bigger jobs come, they need the mid-level and the HODs in the city that can fulfil those roles, of which there are gaps at the moment, which is what we're working on. So there's the production liaison and bringing the productions in, there's the skills, and then there's the facilities and the business side of it, where we help. Got a great business support manager, Sharon, who goes and helps. A great example is some guys that I know actually wanted to set up a prop store and a prop hire house because they saw a bit of a gap in the market, and she helped them set that up. So that's now another facilities company in the city that's been helped by us to fulfil a filming need. And that's just one example of, she deals with, booking hotels or facilities companies or catering or travel or whatever it is that the productions need, office space for the productions to base themselves in. The film office is also runs the depot, which is two 20,000-foot studio spaces on Edge Lane, which is a precursor to the Littlewoods development. So it's almost like a business model proof that a build space is needed. We've got all these amazing locations in the city and such a diverse set of locations, but maybe the one thing that productions need is a build space to go along with that. So yeah, we do, for a team of, up until last year, I think it was a team of 6 or 7. We're now 13 to do all that. And that 5-year impact report there's like half a dozen people who are responsible for that amount of business coming in. That amount of money generated is quite astounding. So because the filming's growing, then we're growing, and that's a reflection of the success of previous years. But the Film Office has been going 35 years, I want to say, 36 years. So second oldest in the world.
Wow.
Biggest in Europe. So a lot to be shouted about, I think.
Definitely. So do you see, because of your influence on the film industry and bringing productions in and also generating talent from inside Liverpool, and as you mentioned, associated businesses like the props company, do you see that it's going to be more that's driven by people from within the city, so people will be employed in it?
That's the idea. That's the hope. That's the mission. That's what we want.
Yeah. So rather than a crew coming in and bringing in crews from outside, it will all be from inside.
I think throughout my career, I've been on both sides of that equation. Having filmed in my home city of Liverpool, but also being filmed in other cities. So there is obviously an element of people bringing crew they know and trust, or whatever it might be, but wherever the opportunities are to provide local talent, local crew, then that's where we want to be at. So that is a big mission, really.
Yeah.
They should be getting all those things from inside the city, I think.
Absolutely. So you mentioned before about it's the most filmed city outside of London. What do you think it is about Liverpool that makes it so attractive to productions?
From an art director's personal point of view, there's so many great things about it. The locations are amazing. Some of the most beautiful buildings, and some of the most like diverse, like interesting parts to buildings as well. Like the basement at St George's Hall, you should like the foundations of that building. They've got these beautiful big like oval foundations underneath there. Like, so they've got this kind of diversity of period and spectacular. But not only that, in such a small geographical space, you've got like red brick terraces, Georgian townhouses, the Three Graces, which doubles up as Manhattan, due to it being designed with America in mind in the first place when the cruise liners were coming over. But if you couple that diversity of locations with the fact you can put a unit base in the city centre pretty much. So, for example, if you film in London Central, you're based at Ealing and you get bussed in, which is an hour and a half on a minibus to get to your filming location, whereas Liverpool's, like, you're there. If you've got a split day, or if you need to get out to a coast or the countryside, it's like 20 minutes up the road and you're on a beach. So that diversity, but I think the thing that kind of glues all that together is the response from the people of the city. There's a real can-do attitude, a real entrepreneurial spirit. It's really welcomed. The Film Office's contacts within the council and gaining permits or closing roads is a pretty powerful tool as well. So if you put all of those things together, it creates a really great experience for people coming in from wherever around the world to film in the city. And I know when I'd been on jobs that filmed here, a lot of the HODs, for example, were coming from wherever, and they all loved it. I think there's a good statistic that 80% of people or decision makers who've come and filmed here have come back. So
that is amazing.
That's a great stat, isn't it?
Testament to us as a
Absolutely,
city.
they love it. So there's a lot to love about it. I mean, I came for 5-6 weeks work in 2002 and I'm still
here. 24 years later.
Exactly, yeah.
Fabulous. Well, we're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you.
You mentioned before about like the skills within the industry. At the moment, what's the skills shortage in the film and TV industry in Liverpool?
So skill shortages, I know I could tell you the kind of the areas or the roles or departments that we're concentrating on next. So that'll be art department, makeup, camera, grips, who are responsible for mounting the camera, and the track and dolly.
So the track and dolly is, just for anybody.
So it's how the camera moves on a track that gets laid out, and the dolly sits on top of the track. It's like a little train the camera moves along on. Accountants, script supervisors. So there's quite a wide range of roles that we could do with more people wanting to do. So
Yeah.
a lot of the action training is around those roles and finding people that are interested in coming into the industry, into those departments specifically. I think first ADs is another one particularly. So yeah, there's a few, but also looking at upskilling mid-level crew to move the mid-level crew up in their roles, and then that will create
Space underneath.
opportunities underneath for rather than everyone just being stagnant and not being able to move up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the kind of aim with that.
So so we do creative media here, like Hugh Baird. So if somebody's doing creative media, what would be their next step? Do you think it's important to get work experience or to...
Yeah, I mean, there's no set rules, I'd say, about how you get in. The opportunities that like an entry-level position of a runner or a location marshal would give you is like paramount, because you get to be on a production and see how every different department works, and then maybe you can start honing what your skills are and what your strengths are, what your interests are, to which department would suit you. So maybe trying to find a role that's a bit broader in its sense, where you interact with more departments while you're doing it, is a great place to start.
Yeah.
Those are some of the opportunities that we've brokered through the action training programme, especially around location marshals. But yeah, reaching out to people. We've got a database that anyone can search as long as you've got an email address, and there's over 700 people on there who work in the industry that you can approach, that have all, by the very fact they've signed up, have allowed their email addresses and phone numbers to be on there. So they're all there to be contacted. So being proactive in your search, no one's going to knock on your door and give you a job, unfortunately. But I think if you go through that process, like the networking or the speaking to people or like honing relationships, teaches you about what it's going to take to do the job and be in the industry. So without going through that process, if you just pick someone up and put them in it, then they wouldn't know how to be self-sufficient about finding the next thing.
Yeah.
So like it really, it's almost like a bit of, if you learn your skills at whichever college or whatever course you're doing, the finishing school, if you like, is like getting yourself that next step up the ladder. Once you've done it once, then you can reapply the same things again and rinse and repeat to build the next relationship. And it's not trying to say that it should all be like take. The best way of building relationships is setting yourself up to help other people, and what can you offer, how can you help, those kind of things. If you set yourself up like that, then that's quickly recognised as someone who's employable, I would say. So yeah, educational base doesn't necessarily dictate which role you're going to end up doing.
Yeah.
Like Helen, for example, the career development manager, she's got a politics degree but worked as a first AD. So
first AD is assistant director.
That's correct, yeah. So they run the set. But a lot of people skills needed, so politics and humanities and people skills come through in that. Sophie, I'm sure she did a media-based degree, and then went into location manager. I did something quite focused around production design, because I had quite a strong idea of where I wanted to put that in. But I've worked with the guy who lit Peaky Blinders, Laurie Rose, was a fine art graduate, and then became a cinematographer. So never picked a camera up while he was at university, do you know what I mean? But it didn't dictate his end role. Yeah. Another great DOP who did physics at university and then went into lighting, but from a very different kind of viewpoint, I suppose. So
yeah,
your education and I suppose the subjects that you do don't necessarily dictate what you can do, but it gives you an idea of how to learn and how to embrace, I suppose, and kind of start honing some of those soft skills. 'Cause it's completing a degree is a bit of an experience in itself, isn't it? Some of the things you need to be able to do.
Can you just start by introducing yourself and what your role is?
Yeah, so my name's Sophie. I work for the Liverpool Film Office. So I'm the new Entrant and Crew Coordinator. So my role is to basically help new people get into the industry that maybe haven't had any experience or like no knowledge of the industry prior. So part of my job is kind of offering training courses and giving information. So we do like information pieces, or we do like training in specific subjects, and then hopefully to get new entrants like placements on jobs that come into the city. So yeah, so I've been there since May last year.
So it's quite new for you as well then. Yay. What was your first ever job?
Oh my gosh. So when I was 14, I'm from Southport originally, I used to work in an ice cream parlour on the waterfront. So I worked there for about 7 years on and off, like just part-time work. But actually I think it kind of gave me quite a lot of insight into working with customers, which is probably what I've needed in later life. So yeah, it was great. And I got to eat lots of ice cream, so that's a benefit.
It sounds actually quite
oh yeah, it was great. I used to make myself milkshakes every morning for breakfast. It wasn't healthy, but it was good.
Yeah, not too shabby at all.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first ever location? Because I know you worked as a location manager before this.
Yeah, so I was in the locations department within the TV and film industry for 10 years. So I started my first job when I was 20, so I was still at university. I went to university in Preston, did a TV production course, and I was just really fortunate enough to be able to get some work experience at Hollyoaks. Well, it was actually Line Pictures. It was a kids show they did called House of Anubis. And I did 2 weeks kind of work experience with them, not in the locations department. And then the location manager kind of came over and was like, have you ever thought about working in locations within TV and film? And I said, I don't know what that is. So she was like, oh no, that's fine. Do you want to come out with the day with me? But I was still at university at the time. So I said, I can, but I need to clear it with the university. They were fine with it. So I went out and did a day in Peckforton Castle in Cheshire. Was my first day on location. And it was surreal, really. I remember thinking, like, do I fit in here? Do I not fit in? Like, is this a crazy world that I can see myself being in the future? And then, weirdly, I think after a few days of being on location, I was very much like, actually, this is me in a nutshell. This is everything I've ever wanted from my career. And then kind of stuck, and then I was there for 10 years. So yeah, it was a long old time. So yeah.
Yeah, so was the whole 10 years with Lime Pictures? No,
so I went freelance. I was freelance when I started at Lime, but I was fortunate enough that they gave me my first few jobs out of when I finished university. So I kind of went back to university, did a few odd days on like commercials. I did the Grand National commercial at Everton Park, was one of my first jobs. And then I was fortunate enough to do a few of the kids shows with them. And then from there kind of went freelance. So I was freelance the rest of my career.
Yeah. So just in case anybody's unfamiliar with what a locations manager does, how would you describe that?
So the department as a whole, the main focus is to find the locations that people film at, mainly for dramas. So I worked in dramas and feature films mainly. So the location manager, the person at the top of the department, they will find the locations and help kind of do all the contracts and the logistical side of it all. So that can start from basically getting a script. So you'll be one of the first people on a job, the locations manager, with usually the designer and a director. Your job is then to use that script, break it down, try and find locations based for each scene. Then you will then put them locations forward to the director, and then they'll pick them. So it can be quite a long process. So you've got to scout, you do a lot of scouting with that. And then kind of as you work down the department, like the grades, as you could call it, you kind of, the rest of the team more work with the logistical side of it. So that's the bit that I kind of like the most. So you deal with making sure you can close roads, so you'd talk to traffic management, the highways, you'd book parking permits, you'd make sure there was toilets on set all the time. You kind of deal with all the logistical stuff you don't really see. So as a department, it's really undervalued because it's not something you necessarily see the work, but locations are first on set and last on set every day. So they're kind of the longest standing member of the team, and then as a locations assistant point of view, you deal more with the like stuff on the floor, as we always call it. So you will be on set to help with, if there's a tractor making a noise 3 miles away, you might have to drive to that tractor and ask if they'll stop, because we can hear it on the filming camera. You'll have to deal with all the rubbish, all the kind of like making sure the sets are left tidy. You're the kind of the main person in between the location owner and the general public and the film crew. So you're kind of the person that kind of keeps it all together. So if an angry neighbour comes and says there's a car parked outside my house, it's not mine, whose is it? We would be the people that kind of deal with that and have to like combat it. So that's where I suppose the customer service skills I got from when I was younger really kind of came into play when I started in the locations department. And I didn't realise how angry people could get. I've dealt with a lot of angry people in my time, but it was kind of the fun of it, because you didn't really know what every day was going to bring. And now it's actually one of the departments we use to get people into the industry. Location marshalling has become quite a big stepping into the industry for all new entrants. I would say probably all our trainees on our database have done location marshalling at some point, because all the feature films use them to like lock off roads. So like say you were filming on a road and you need the pavement locking off so people don't walk past, they'll put a location marshal on the end of that pavement to speak to the general public and be like, do you mind just going the other way, and all that sort of stuff. So it's a great like avenue in for anyone. A lot of people don't want to stick with it because it is a very logistical role in comparison to other more creative roles in the industry, but it kind of worked more for me because that was the way my brain worked, I suppose. So
it really appealed to your skills.
Yeah, I've always been fairly organised. I think that's part of the reason why I'm quite good at the job I do now, because I have to organise everyone like within our database. And I think I was a bit worried, to be honest, when I went to university, because we focused a lot on like self-shooting and like live studio stuff at my university. And it wasn't for me at all. I wasn't technical. I wasn't really into the creative side of having to think of an idea or think of kind of what the scripts are going to be like or anything. So for me, finding a role that was kind of the opposite to that and was more about the logistical and the operational side of it worked better for kind of the way my brain worked. And to be honest, I would say how I always used to describe locations to people is it's like organising an event every day. So every day is like its own unique little event that you have to think of, and we're one of the only departments that thinks ahead. So similar to maybe the art department are the same, but whereas everyone else is just thinking about what they're shooting that day, we're thinking about what's going on in 3 weeks' time to make sure that the roads are closed or the parking's all booked and all that sort of stuff. So it's a very like reactive job, I suppose, as well. So,
So it's proactive and reactive, I suppose, isn't it?
It was it's definitely, it's sometimes hard to describe, I think, as a department. It sounds like we probably don't do a lot, but like you're busy from the moment you come in to the moment you go home. So I think it's because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Like sometimes when you're scouting for locations, you might go and look for some houses. You letter drop 10 streets in the area and ask them if they'd be willing for us to come and photograph their house. And 50 of them houses might come back and say they want to be photographed. You have to go and photograph every house to give them their like due diligence. But you know that 60-70% of them don't really work at all. So it's kind of like a very tedious job sometimes, but you also get to see incredible places. Like I've seen areas of this city that most other people will never see in their life. So which is cool and also a bit mad. So it's good.
What's one of the most interesting locations?
In this city, one of my favourite locations is on Dale Street, where the town hall is. A little bit further up, there's a gym called the JD Gym on the right. Underneath that gym is an old state ballroom, and it's still exactly how it was. Weirdly, actually, I was watching Peaky Blinders yesterday, and it was used in Peaky Blinders, so I saw it on that yesterday. And that's exactly how it was. So all the old furniture is still in, all the stage, everything, and it's just not been touched really. So that's been used a lot for filming, and you wouldn't know it's there. Like you walk past it every day, and you wouldn't have a clue it was there. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to slightly name drop something I worked on here, but when I worked on Batman, we obviously got the privilege of being able to film on top of the library building, and when we were in the prep up to it, there was one night they wanted us to go and get shots on the roof at night when no one was up there, and it was during COVID at the time, so most people were at home, and we were on this roof at night with like no one in the whole city, and it was just insane because we were taking pictures, and it was real, like a really surreal moment. So yeah, you get to see some amazing places, and I've done a lot of countryside stuff, so the countryside is always beautiful to film in when it's a nice day, that is.
Absolutely. Just going back to kind of moving from being obviously an amazing locations department to moving into Liverpool Film Office, but what drew you into that?
So to be honest, it was probably COVID. During I was just coming up to 30 when COVID hit, and the industry in that particular department, there wasn't many women who were successful in that department that had kids and a family. There is actually 2 locations people from Liverpool who have very, very successfully done that, Faye and Claire Newton. But apart from them, there wasn't many women who had a life outside of the world of film and TV in the locations department, I think because of the length of the hours and how much you have to give. And I decided that I would like to have a change to see if it was something I wanted to do, leave the industry. So when I was coming up to COVID, I was actually thinking of leaving. I'd applied for a few jobs within events, actually. None of them had quite gone to plan, which was fortunate because then COVID hit and I then don't know what position I would have been in. So I continued working after COVID for a year or so, and then I got approached by a supply company. So in the locations department, you have to hire like generators and tower lights and all the like infrastructure. It's like mats and stuff for the flooring. So one of them companies that I worked with closely, they actually approached me and said, would you be consider leaving the industry? So for me, it just felt like the right time. I was just about to turn 30. I turned 30 a month before I started the company. And even though it doesn't seem old, for me, I was like, I've done 10 years and I think I'm ready for a change. And then I was there for a few years before I started with the Film Office. I'm never saying I won't go back, but currently it's not something I want to go back to. I think I've finally met my partner and want to settle down. So I'm like, it's very hard to have a child in that line of work, because obviously you're freelance, so the times you're off, you don't get paid for it. So it makes it a lot more challenging. So I think for me, it was just a change, but some people make it work. It just wasn't for me, really.
Yeah. So it's kind of the right time.
Yeah, and I think that differs for men and women in the industry. I know there's a lot of men that do usually stay in the industry, and if they're with someone, a lady who's from the industry and she goes and gets pregnant, that sounds awful, then she'll usually take the time off and the man will continue to work. But I just didn't want that to be the case for me. So, that was just a preference, really.
So what do you love about your present job in the Liverpool Film Office?
I think it's actually, I was unsure about it, to be fair. When I first applied for it, I was like, I'm not actually sure whether this is going to be the right job for me. I always knew I was quite good with people, but I didn't know whether I could help nurture people into the roles. I think, unfortunately, when I did leave the industry, the company I then worked for as a supply chain, they weren't particularly a great company to work for, and unfortunately, I started to resent the industry a little bit because of that. So I was worried when I started this job that I was going to put that same negative effect onto the trainees that were coming through with us. But actually what I've noticed now is that I've kind of put all that beside me and I've realised the real good that the industry does. So I think the nicest part of it is being able to show what the industry can provide to these people and see these trainees go onto these jobs and just like completely like accelerate and be incredible. So it's just a really nice like journey to watch the individuals. So our plan is that they do a placement with us, but then we continue to like work with them as they go on. So now that we see trainees that are on their 4th, 5th jobs, and it's nice to see that they're like really like enjoying it and like still want to be in the industry. So I think that's probably my favourite thing.
That must be really satisfying for you.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I didn't realise when I applied for it how much my knowledge of the industry was going to help with that. But we obviously get a lot of people that come to me and ask questions about the industry that if you hadn't been in the industry before, you wouldn't know what you were answering. So I think from that point of view, it's nice to be able to like give my own personal like feedback into how kind of I would have done it or how it worked for me, and then it helps them kind of go, okay, so I'm not the only person that's been through this, like Sophie's been through it before, or whatever it is. So it's just nice to be able to, it's a part of the job I was worried about, but actually it's been the nicest part of it. So yeah, that's probably my favourite thing.
Fabulous. You touched on the projects that you've got going with work placements and getting people into the industry. Can you just describe them? I know there's a couple of different schemes going on.
Yeah, so we're currently working with 2 schemes at the moment. So our first scheme was Action. So we've partnered with the Screen Alliance North. So that is all the screens not all the screens in the North, but the 4 main screens in the North. So that's Screen Manchester, North East Screen Yorkshire, and ourselves at Liverpool Film Office. Yeah. So we've kind of partnered together, and we got a sum of money from the BFI, and that money was basically to help upskill and train crew in our regions. So through the BFI we have a scheme called Action, which is, we've just come into the end of our 3rd year now. So that is basically for anyone that has no experience, so they could have gone to university, they don't have to have gone to university, that's any age as well. And they basically come to us, we do a few like introduction sessions, we tell them about what the industry is, the different departments they can go into, we signpost them to like websites that might be able to help them, that sort of stuff. And then from there they can do a training course with us in any of the departments they're interested in. So in the past year, for example, since I've been there, we've done an art department course, we've done a camera course, production, locations, a script supervising course. So you will then do a course, which will just be a day, fully funded by us. Some of them are 2 days. And then from there, you then get added to our paid work opportunities emailing list. So you can either then do a paid placement with us, which is co-funded by us, and we kind of mentor you through that, or we get like calls for like location marshalling and runners, which are more like just dailies, but gives you that opportunity to go on set and see how it works. So a lot of them do that sort of stuff as well. So they're then usually on that mailing list for a few years. So the team that we've got with us that have been on for the 3 years, we're probably going to graduate some of them now and let them kind of go off. And then we'll have a new wave for the next 3 years, because we've just got the funding for the next 3 years. So that's our first one. And then our second one that we've only just started in November is Trailblazers. So that's the Youth Guarantee Trailblazers scheme. That is for people 18 to 21 who are not in higher further education and are unemployed. And that's a similar scheme. We've only piloted it this year. So we did one course in January, which was like a basic course about what the industry is. We did a stunts course, which was quite fun, where we had stunt performers come in and teach them how to do the stunt courses. And then from there, they then get placements. But what we try and do with them placements, because they are younger and usually some of them haven't maybe experienced work before, we usually try and get the placements within companies that we know and we trust. So Line Pictures, LA Productions, so companies that are based here and are usually in-house, and they're only 4-week placements, whereas our placements for the Action cohort can be up to like 12, 18 weeks, depending on how long the production is, and they're usually on outside productions coming in. So This City Is Ours, Waiting for the Out, which has just come out. So they're usually bigger productions that have a bit more money. So that's how both the kind of schemes work. So they're both going well at the moment, and they're going again, so that's a good sign.
So what percentage of people tend to go on and work in the industry from the courses?
I should know this because we're doing all our stats at the moment. I don't actually know the exact percentage. In the last 3 years through Action, we've done, I think it's 73 placements. So they're all the initial placements. I would say about 50% of them have then continued on to a second placement, third placement, not with us, but with other people. Some people do the placement and go, this isn't for me. And some people don't like the freelance aspect of it. So some people say, I really like the industry, but I'd like to get a job in-house. So we try and signpost them to like Line Pictures have recently had an internship come up, which I think is like a year. So we then try and post them sort of people to that, because it's a little bit more secure and they've got a fuller job. And then So most of them usually continue. I think that's what we want to try and do in the next 3 years. We've struggled to do that because our team was only one prior to me and Dan arriving. So we would like to try and do that going forward a bit more, try and track our trainees so we can figure out exactly who is going on and where they're going to. And we try and signpost people. There's another company called Screen Skills, that are a nationwide company. But they expect the trainees to have already had a placement, like accredited placement.
Yeah.
So what we try and do is once they've done a placement with us, then try and signpost them towards Screen Skills as their next step. And we've actually just had 5 of our trainees get accepted onto Screen Skills this time round. So they all start with Screen Skills next month. So
that's quite exciting.
So it's really nice to see the progression. So they'll then definitely get a placement with Screen Skills. It's just not necessarily based in Liverpool. It could be London, Bristol, Leeds, any of them places. So, but yeah.
Yeah. So looking at the kind of people who succeed in the industry, you know, from the trainees or from your own experience, what kind of skills and personality do you find works really well within the industry?
Do you know what? In terms of personality, it's very different depending on what department you're in. People that excel in obviously locations are people that usually can talk quite a bit like me and are just usually quite good with people, whereas you find like some of the other departments are more, I suppose, introverted and they don't need to really kind of work outside their own department. You know, the sound department are very a close-knit community. So, you know, I think with a lot of people, I always say to people, if you are really driven to get into this industry, you will get into this industry. And what we find is when people do one placement with us, it's the people that then do the legwork after that get the next placement. So it's the people that will start reaching out to people, will stay in communication with the people they've just worked with, will go to networking events, will go and like meet these people. And it is hard because like not everyone is outgoing, so it's hard for people to kind of know where to go and where their networks are. But usually if you are driven and have kind of got that attitude to want to continue with your career, the majority of people I think that have that attitude usually get kind of by. But I don't think you need necessarily a particular personality. It just depends what sort of department you go into. That's the amazing thing about the industry is like you can be part of an industry that has such a variety of people and such a variety of like different personalities, and they all actually naturally fit in together eventually. It just sometimes takes a bit of time.
But it meshes in the end.
Eventually, it's like one big family.
What common misconceptions are there about locations as a particular?
Well, I think the biggest misconception about the whole TV and film industry is that it's glamorous, because it's not. So I think everyone expects you to be, you know, in really beautiful places and with the actors and, you know, drinking hot tea and all that sort of stuff, and it's usually not like that. But I think the biggest misconception with locations is unfortunately, as a department, we got a bit of a bad rep for a while of not performing to the extent that we should, and I think that's more because people don't know what we do. I think people would turn up to a set and you'd say to them, so I'm going to give this room as an example. You would come to film here and it might be that every department will come to you and say, this is what I want to change it. And so the lighting department might be like, I need to take all the bulbs out of the lights. The art department want to remove all this furniture. They want to repaint a wall. They want to, the camera team want to put a crane outside the window and hover in, like be outside and be able to look through. So that means you have to have a crane outside. And it might be that one of them aspects you can't make happen. You know, like we could come to you and you might say, you're not allowed to paint these walls. Like we can't paint the walls regardless of whether you're going to paint them back. And that one thing can make everyone go, well, this locations department isn't very good. And it's like, well, why? And they're like, well, because you couldn't make that happen. And I'm like, no, but we've got a crane outside. We've got, all the lights, bulbs have come out. Like everything else you've asked for has happened. But that one thing that you've asked for, because we can't make it work, they're like, oh, that's the end of the world. So I think that's the kind of misconception of locations, is that sometimes they're like, oh, well, they've not even tried to ask that question. And you're like, no, we have. We just can't do it. It's just not possible. So I think I think people think that because you're paying someone money to be able to do something in their house or something, you should be able to do anything. You know, I've had it where we've gone into people's houses and people have been like, we need to remove the fireplace. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. Like, people aren't going to accept. They're going to be like, well, we'll try and put it back. And I'll be like, yeah, but you're not going to put it back in the same way that it was there. So we're not doing that. And people will be like, oh, we want to knock that wall down in that house. And I'm like, again, that's not going to happen. So I think, like, it's about the expectations of what people think locations are going to give to them sometimes.
Marvellous. This next part is a really exciting part that we do.
Okay.
Which is when we give you a box.
Oh, okay.
And we have some students' questions in them.
Oh, gosh.
So we don't know whether obviously
oh, gosh.
Take any one and read it out. That'd be great.
Okay. How long does it take to organise and film a set, and what are the common setbacks? I suppose I would probably look more of it as the prep time. So I think people most scenes, which I think is what they're probably trying to get at, is most scenes, depending on the length of them, could take either a day or like a few hours. It really depends. So like usually what you try and do with location filming is you might be filming 3 scenes in a day, but them scenes might be from different episodes, or none of them are in sequence.
Yeah.
So what that then does is, but it means that you're kind of filming out that location, as they call it. So you're just filming all the stuff on that location, and then you'll move on to the next one. So it's kind of hard to dictate how long each like scene or set will take, because it depends on the length of the scenes. In terms of like prep leading up to them as well, and the strike, so you have obviously both sides of it. The prep can take, again, if you're not doing anything with dressing wise or lighting or anything like that, can just be the morning of. But obviously if you're starting to like close the roads, kind of do any big set dressing or anything, it can be weeks leading up to it. So it's kind of it can vary depending on what the scene is and what you have to do afterwards as well, and what's the other common setbacks. I would say one of the biggest setbacks when it comes to location filming is the weather.
Okay.
So
I was thinking the people, but
no. So usually the people are quite manageable. You do get the occasional person that doesn't want you to be there, and they'll make it known. I've had people stand in the middle of set and say I'm not moving.
How'd you deal with that, just out of interest?
Well, most of the time you're filming, a lot of the time you end up having a police officer with you, and that's mainly because that's something else we have to book, which if you knew how much a police officer costs for an hour, you'd scream. But because every time you have fake police, so I was fortunate enough to work on the responder, and obviously we had a lot of fake police out with us, or police cars, and we had guns, so every time you have a fake gun as well, you have to have a police officer with you, which actually really helps in them circumstances, because if you've got a police officer with you, as soon as a police officer goes over to someone that's standing in the middle of the set and tries to calm them down, usually they'll move off set and you can talk to them. But it can vary really. Some people just want to be paid, so you have to kind of look at the logistics of like, okay, why are we affecting them? Like, do they have a house that's right next door? If they do, then maybe it is a case of we have massively inconvenienced them. Do we give them some sort of money? Other people, it might be that they just like to cause a scene, and there's no inconvenience to them. They just want to get in the middle of it. Yeah. So with them sort of people, it is hard. You usually just have to ask them as politely as possible, or you have a backup for the director. So say you're looking down the street that way and that's where the person won't move from, you try and think about whether you can turn the camera and just look the other way for the rest of the day and film that way. So I think there is always usually ways around that, and if needs be, you can call the police and get it. And you don't want it to come to that, but like that sometimes does happen. But yeah, the weather is probably the biggest hurdle. One of the craziest stories I probably have is I was on a job called Curfew, which it was solid night shoot. So the premise of the film was that monsters came out in the night, and so there was a curfew every night. You had to go to bed at 9 o'clock. The monsters came out, and then there was a car chase from one side of the country to the other. So the car chase happened at night. So it was all nighttime filming. And we started it in Manchester, and it was like -10, it was snowing, and we were trying to do the start of the stunt race. So we had like 50 stunt cars all trying to fly down this little tiny like ramp, but it was obviously just so icy. So we had ice, what they're called, de-icers, you know, like the
yeah.
machines.
Oh, yes, yeah.
We had like vehicles just literally coming up and down until it like thawed, basically.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, so the weather is probably the biggest hurdle in my opinion. So
Expect the weather.
Yeah.
That was all absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh no, so yeah, you've been absolutely marvellous.
Oh, thank you.
You've been revelatory, definitely.
thank
and I
you.
know our students will absolutely love watching this.
Oh, fingers crossed.
And I can say, Sophie, thank you so much for coming.
No worries, thank you for having me.
We've loved
Cheers.
having you. Thank
you.